I'm Ann Bocock, and welcome to Between the Covers. Maria Hinojosa is a renowned journalist, a nearly 30-year career, and that includes PBS, CNN, CBS, NPR. She's won dozens of awards and the coveted Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism. Her reporting is authentic. She is a fearless, hard-hitting journalist. And let me tell you, when I finished Maria's latest book, I found that I was in this place of being stunned and reflective all at the same time. I have a million questions and less than a half an hour. Her book is Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in a torn America. So please welcome Maria Hinojosa. Hi, and welcome.
So good to be here with you.
Your book, your story, it's your story, but it is also our story as a nation because you talk about decades of American immigration policy and you're speaking your truth. When I was reading it, I just felt like you must have felt you were compelled to write this.
How did you know? That's exactly how I felt, because writing a book, especially for a journalist that does, daily, weekly journalism is a real challenge. It's a long deadline, it's a it's not something that I like, oh, let me write a book. So I was not looking forward necessarily to writing a book, but I felt like in this moment there was a compelling story that needed to be told. And at first I thought it was just going to be this moment that went viral when I was on a cable news network talking in 2016 about the election, and somebody used the term illegals, illegal immigrants. And I said, there's no such thing as an illegal human being. Illegal is not a noun. And I thought I was going to write a small little book that kind of explained that concept. That ended up actually turning into what the publishing world calls a big book, in the sense that it's a book that is not just a memoir. You're right. There's history, there's policy. It is, thank you so much. I feel like it is an American woman's book, in the sense that there is a lot of it that is a woman's story, but also men should read it. Um, and I think that this moment, it was like, I just have to tell these stories. And I have to give context because I'm confused about what's happening in this country. And I've been covering it as a journalist for 30 years. This helped me to come to more understanding of what's really going on in our country.
I'm going to let our audience know that they can ask Facebook questions. Just drop them in the Q&A part. Um, there's there is the dedication is short and sweet. And if you have the book in front of you, I don't want to read the Spanish because my Spanish teacher would probably turn over in her grave from, but if you could read that, it would be really lovely.
Okay. So the first one, this is very beautiful, actually. Thank you for making me read this. I've never had to read it out loud, so this is actually very special. It says, the dedication para Ceci, mi papá y Maritere, who taught me to find joy in every moment. May they rest in peace. And to all the children who grow up in a country that isn't their own, you are not invisible. I see you because I still am you. Te veo porque me veo todavía en ti.
Maria, to all the children who grow up in a country that isn't their own. So, does this sense of not belonging get easier? Does it go away?
I just had a call from a student today. She's what, 22, 21, Mexican American. And she said to me, I don't know. I just constantly never feel like I'm right in either place. And I said, well, love, get used to it. That's not going to go away ever. But what you can do is reframe it in your brain. And what you do is that you understand that that feeling is your superpower. That notion of like, wait, I feel uncomfortable when I'm at home in New York sometimes, but I feel uncomfortable when I'm at home back in Mexico sometimes. The fact that she can feel that discomfort is part of her experience. So what I'm trying to do is change that narrative, so because it's going to stay with you. Yeah, I mean, look at the narrative. The narrative in our country is overwhelmingly white. male. I mean, overwhelmingly white. That just like the TV, the sitcoms, the authors, it's overwhelmingly white. It's important for us to want to share these stories, to tell these stories, because we are you and you are us. We are all growing up in this country together. We are all living in this space together. And the more we can see ourselves in each other, in my view, the better we are as people. And to me, that has nothing to do with politics, really. It's can do we have the capacity to see ourselves in the person most unlike us?
Maria, your own story, your own American story, began when you were just a toddler in your mother's arms. And I stopped my heart for a moment when I'm reading this, because there was this moment that could have been absolutely dreadful at the border. Do you want to tell us what happened?
Yeah, and this is why I urge people to ask those questions. There oftentimes our parents, grandparents, maybe they don't want to talk about these things, and maybe we can find a way to have these conversations, because it was basically, my mom is in her 80s when she heard the voices of the babies and toddlers and children screaming for their parents. We all heard those voices. It was big news. Those, by the way, that is still happening right now. There are children who are away from their family members and they are crying right now. So my mother, this really unlocked something. We knew that there was a story of what had happened when we flew. We had privilege. We flew with green cards from Mexico City to Dallas, Dallas to Chicago, where my dad was working at the University of Chicago. He helped to create the cochlear implant. May he rest in peace. We knew that something had happened at the airport with immigration agents, but it was in this moment when my mother calls me after hearing these cries, and she said, "Oh my God, mijita, that those mothers, I understand it could have been me." And I was like, mom, what are you talking about? And then she just said, those babies that have been taken, it could have been you. The immigration agent at the Dallas airport said he wanted to take you from me and put you in quarantine, and that we should fly ahead to Chicago and leave you behind. And my mother, he had spotted something that he said was the measles. It was a rash, but they were going to put me into quarantine, and I was a baby in arms. So that means that there was a room in the Dallas airport where they were going to put me. Were it not for the fact that my mother started screaming and went into a space of trauma. And that's what saved me, was that my mother started screaming like a crazy woman because they were about to take her child. And the immigration agent said, okay, just stop screaming, go. If she hadn't screamed, who knows what would have happened?
Thank goodness for screaming mothers. I have to ask, when you were writing and researching, did you feel obligated to correct the narrative, to really enlighten us about our history of immigration and detention? And also, was there anything that really surprised you when you started doing the background research?
That was the most intense part in many ways, because I realized that I was challenged now with taking on the history of this country, my adopted country. And could I do this? Could I do this? No, in fact, I had to do it. Um, and it was painful, because here's the thing. I live not too far from the Statue of Liberty. And that is a beautiful narrative of who we are. But on the other side of the Statue of Liberty, there are politicians and policies that are made that have been harming immigrants and restricting immigrants coming into this country increasingly, based on xenophobia and racism. And we're living this right now because of the Black Lives Matter movement that has become a national movement in this country. And many people are asking, how am I related to this? 401 years of Black people being forced to come to this country. How am I tied to this? So in that same way, we have to understand history in this country from the perspective of immigrants and refugees. And, what was a challenge was to realize that a pox on both of their houses, both the Democrats and the Republicans, have been not so good for immigrants and immigration policy. The last president who was good for immigrants in terms of increasing numbers of refugees, immigrants, created a temporary protective status was George H.W. Bush. So Trump is a legacy of Republican policies, but some of those, like Bill Clinton, was the first one who started to build the wall. So that kind of history, that it's both of the parties, needs that means that all of us have got to take more responsibility in understanding that, and therefore not letting it continue to happen. At this point, we don't have a problem with immigration. There is net zero immigration at this point on the southern border. Refugees have been basically scaled back to zero. It's just a couple of thousand. We have a human rights problem. We have an international human rights crisis right now that has been perpetrated by government actors in the United States of America. Women's uteruses are being taken. They are being forcibly sterilized forever. And children's parents are not being able to be found in a country that can send men and women to the moon. I find it hard to believe that they cannot find the parents. And it's not 545. It's many, many, many more.
If anyone in the audience has questions, you can drop them into our Facebook Q&A and we'll get to them. You know, you gave me a pretty good history lesson in this book, and I'm talking about immigration centers and facilities. And you've cured me of referring to them as detention centers. You know, you've been reporting on this since the 80s, even though this is at the top of the news cycle now. You've been talking about this for decades.
Yeah, that's why, like, on days like today where we're kind of living through a historic moment, this is something to ponder, honestly, because there's a lot of talk right now about Latino and Latina voters and our role in the election and what's happening. Latinos and Latinas from Florida, we are a very complex group of people that share a language. But the first time that I visited a detention camp was in 1986 in Harlingen, Texas. It was referred to then by immigrants and refugees as El Corralón, which means the corral, because they were corralled like cattle. They were out in the hot sun under barely anything covering them, with a fence around them. Now, immigrants and refugees, when they encounter immigration agents, they are put into a place called La Hielera. It's the opposite of a corral in the hot sun. La Hielera means icebox. And they are putting them in what immigrants call them refrigerators, because they are told for their own good. But they are freezing. It's a form of torture. It's psychological torture to not let people sleep and make them stand up and every hour. These are things that are happening, to take their children or threaten to take their children. These are the horrors that are happening today. And so thank you for saying what you said. The idea with the book is to not make you feel like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person, but rather, what can I do? Because this isn't who I want our country to be anymore.
You know, we glossed over this in the beginning, but the term illegal, you did have that viral clip on cable news about the word illegal, because I believe, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, it sounds like they've done something wrong when their dream was the crime. The crime was having a dream. So since you've been covering this for years and years, has anything changed?
Yes, it's gotten worse. That's what's changed. It's gotten worse. We just lived through something as a country, the Me Too movement, where people who were abusers and professionals were, being uncovered, right? And things got better, right? I mean, there's movement. On the issue of immigration, things have gotten worse. The New York Times, the paper of record, still uses the term illegal immigrant. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. It's an immigrant who may have crossed illegally, but the immigrant himself is not an illegal person, because you cannot be illegal. And who taught me that was not a Mexican political scientist. It was Elie Wiesel, who survived the Holocaust. He was the one who said to me, the first thing that the Nazis did was to declare the Jews to be an illegal people. Never refer to a person as an illegal person. So I do want to start that dialogue, because I think in this country, I do believe that most people really appreciate being educated. Even if they start off kind of, on a certain perspective, if you have a dialogue and you're able to and listen to each other, I think most Americans, as we know, already want a path for citizenship for their neighbors and friends, for the people who they work with, who are living undocumented. They want that path. Sadly, the last few years have been so divisive. We're going to have to work extra hard to heal and repair.
Well, several times when I was reading the book, I literally had to stop, put it down, and process what I was reading because I'm sitting here realizing that there is such a responsibility that comes with privilege. So, looking at this from a journalist perspective, are you propelled by the power and the impact that your stories can have?
Thank you for picking up on that. To me, this notion of understanding our privilege, anybody who is watching this right now has privilege. And I'm saying you may be in debt, you may be facing mental health issues, you may have family members who are addicted. All of these things just came up in my hours of teaching today. So I understand that. But we have this privilege. We have this particular privilege. And so you're right. The way I understood, this notion of what happened, that I was the first Latina in all of the newsrooms where I worked. And yeah, it was uncomfortable. I mean, sure, I was scared, but I was like, my God, but you have this privilege to be here. Therefore, you have a responsibility. And, I had to raise my right hand and take an oath to this country that I would bear arms for this country. I mean, like, I don't like guns. Like, they're just not my thing. I respect people who do. They're fun. I mean, I have shot them, but it's not my thing. But I had to say that. And so I take this really seriously. Like, to me, this is civic duty. The reason why I do this is because I believe that these kinds of conversations have the capacity to make people think and feel, and that my journalism has the capacity to make people feel something about their common humanity with other people. And my job as a journalist is, in fact, to find myself in the people most unlike me. That is my job. And to try and understand and then share with others a way of thinking. That's my job, not to judge, to listen.
Sometimes stories have consequences that we don't anticipate. And there was a chapter in the book, or a little segment. You did a story a while back on people fleeing the United States to cross the Canadian border. And I think that had an outcome that you didn't anticipate. So our words do carry power.
Well, I love everything that you're picking up on. Those are such particular moments. So the scene that you're describing, so people understand, is kind of like, wait, what happened? So after 9/11, the FBI created, it wasn't a Muslim ban. It was the precursor. It was a Muslim registry where all Muslim men and those who were from government-defined Muslim Arab countries who were born there, had to register with the federal government. It was a way of keeping track of them. Imagine if they had said everybody of Jewish descent has to register with the federal government. It would have been just like, what are you talking about? But this happened after 9/11. Our fear, our PTSD, the xenophobia allowed that to happen. And so there were people here, professionals, families, who were in mixed status families, who had overstayed visas, who were living undocumented, and who could not register with the FBI because then they would be deported and their families would be ripped apart. And so they were running to Canada to ask for asylum. And that was the scene that I described, where I saw people fleeing at 5 a.m, running away from the United States, the country that is supposed to be providing refuge with our Statue of Liberty. And I witnessed people running to Canada. Soon after that story, which was so deeply emotional, you're right, the consequence was that Canada then closed its borders. And then you just feel like a journalist, wow, maybe I should have never told that story.
That was a powerful scene. You were also really open about being a survivor of sexual assault and telling this kind of truth is difficult and it's also really powerful. You found your own voice in doing that. And I think Do you agree that you have given voice to other women? Because so many women keep this trauma private for decades, maybe even forever. Have you heard that from women?
Oh yeah, and again, I'm so loving everything that you're picking up because what you're doing is that you're realizing that the book, as you read it, right, it's multiple stories in one. There are
It is.
these multiple layered stories because we, as American women, have those multiple layered stories. And some people have asked me, why did you end up writing about your rape that happened when I was 16? You didn't have to, but as a Mexican woman being raised in the United States, this issue of our sexuality is like for real, like it's a big thing. In Mexico, always it was like, oh, American women, they're too sexually free. That was my father's message to me. So we get that still today, the virgin or not complex, and so I needed to write this. This is an essential part of who I am. And in fact, it left me vulnerable. And that's why I end up getting raped by somebody who I knew. He was 24. I mean, he was hanging out in a tourist area where a bunch of families were. And so I needed to also, really, it was the historical moment. We all lived through the nomination of Justice Kavanaugh. We lived through Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. And I remember everybody saying, oh, come on, you were 15. Oh, come on. And the thing is that if you don't really resolve it soon after, and there was no way that neither Dr. Christine Blasey Ford or myself could even name what had happened as sexual violence or assault or a rape, it does stay with you and it can destroy your marriage. It can in ways that you don't even know. So that is exactly the response that I have gotten from women of all backgrounds, of all races and ethnicities is, thank you so much for talking about that. It helped me so much to understand and hopefully puts some more women on the path to healing, because there is another side of that where we can own our entire selves and really forgive ourselves, because it always comes down to it was our fault, and it wasn't. It never can be our fault.
I will, for all the women, I will thank you for writing that part of the book. You have some really huge accomplishments, Emmys and Peabody, and you're such a role model. Your career is it's just remarkable. And yet, in this book, you use the term imposter syndrome. What is that all about?
Yeah, so people have really loved the fact that I've talked about this. I really wasn't planning on it, but again, you're writing and it's like, well, this is something that happens to me when you're writing a memoir, you're just telling the truth. And I was like, wow, this imposter syndrome thing. It's the never feeling like you belong, like you're good enough, that there's this always feeling like I'm going to get found out. Oh my God, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. I really can't write. I'm really not a journalist. How did I get to Barnard College? Am I really graduating? All of this constant questioning. And you're right. Many people have said, but you're so accomplished. Why would you want to reveal that you had those feelings? And I'm like, because I don't want you to have those feelings. They're going to come. But I want you to know that everybody has them. I understand that now. We all do. And so we just want to come up with strategies, because ultimately it's a waste of our time. It's a waste of our mental energy. It's buying into a narrative that we are not good enough. And I'm all about not buying into that narrative. Why? Because life is too short, and we have to own our power. We are survivors in so many ways. And the story of American women really is always that quest to own our power, own our voice in our way, owning our narrative. And that's part of how we do it, by being truthful, I think.
This book is absolutely truthful. I'm going to go to the very beginning of the book. And you said that at one time you wanted to be an actress. Now, after everything that you've done, I'm wondering, is this a possible next chapter for
uh, so the reason why I even mentioned that was because I want people to know about making dreams and keeping dreams alive. And I'm one of those people always who's like, oh, come on, a dream. Like what? So that's why I'm saying it, because if you if you have a dream, and actually, this was after the election of Donald Trump when I was very concerned about what the future looked like. And I remember people saying, look, during World War II, at the height of the Nazi era, or, the Vietnam War, there was amazing art produced because people were being fearless. And so I was just like, I'm just going to be like, even, okay, so acting. And so I started telling people that story because I was writing it. I was like, I always wanted to be an actress. Well, guess what happened? In the summer of 2021, when the film In the Heights is released, you will see me in that film. So I am making my Hollywood acting debut in the summer of 2021 in the film In the Heights. The dream came true.
Go for it. The book is Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in torn America. Maria Hinojosa, I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you for a beautiful interview.
Join me on the next Between the Covers.